The city, a sprawling, breathing beast of light, fell silent in an instant. The first thing Detective Darius Cole noticed was the sound, or the sudden, profound lack of it. It wasn't the distant whine of a generator starting up, but the absolute, clean-cut silence of a city holding its breath. Elevators stopped mid-floor, turning to metal coffins. Sirens choked off into a flat, dead note. Cash registers, their mouths open in the act of transaction, froze. In that single, sharp second, a clean slice ran through the night. This was the moment the thieves chose, not because it was dark, but because they had been promised the dark. Darius Cole knew routine. For 23 years with the Metro Major Crimes Unit, routine was his anchor, a shield against the weight of every dead body and the corrosive acid of every lie. On the night the storm died, the night that felt less like an act of nature and more like a carefully executed murder, routine died with it. At 11:13, the power grid segment W12 vanished. 5 minutes later, the entire eastern belt dropped. It didn't roll or flicker back, it fell, like a trap door snapping shut. Hospitals frantically kicked over to their generators. Traffic dissolved into a confused, snarling mess of metal. The city had endured storms. It had never heard silence like this. 3 blocks from the Federal Depository Annex, a dark van idled. No lights, just the slow pulse of a quiet engine. The driver, hidden in the dark, wore a pair of bright, almost theatrical red gloves. When the cargo door slid open, it didn't rattle, it sighed. Inside, a rectangular case sat, cold and anonymous, stenciled only with a number. A hand in a red glove reached in, touching the case with a tenderness that spoke of ownership. Then, the van moved. Cole knew, instinctively, that this wasn't a robbery for money. It felt cleaner, colder, like a burial. The target wasn't gold or cash. It was lighter, something that could vanish without a clink, a rumor erased before it became a fact. The first call jolted Cole's phone at 11:22, a possible breach at the federal Annex. Response delayed due to the failure. He stood by his apartment window, watching the opposite building turn into a flat black tomb. His reflection stared back at him in the glass. For a long, unsettling second, he felt like he was looking at a stranger. He drove in the dead city. There was no skyline, only a map someone had erased with one careful, powerful stroke. The fear was small and cold, a stone that had lodged in his throat since his first year on the job, and it would not move. At the Annex, 2 private contractors stood with flashlights, their voices low and rehearsed. Their federal logo jackets looked too new, too crisp. Cole flashed his badge. The taller guard barely glanced at it. His eyes darted past Cole's shoulder, as if waiting for a different kind of authority. He asked, "What do we have?" The guard had a face made for lying. He did at least change his flashlight hand. Attempted robbery. Perimeter intact. Likely a false alarm. Powers down. We're running locally. Cole knew the Annex. 2 public floors, 4 secure sub-levels, a vault room built to survive a nuclear winter. He also knew the Annex never called Metro for a false alarm. He asked for the breach point. The guard gestured toward a dark camera monitor, calling it a glitch. He tasted the lie. He called it a hole. He stepped into the stairwell. His flashlight beam was a thin, nervous knife on the concrete. The air smelled of wet metal and old fear. On sub-level 2, he found the first thing that screamed wrong. A side door had a fresh magnet plate secured by a bead of solder that hadn't cooled properly. Installed, he estimated, within the last hour. The trail led to Vault 9. The heavy door was closed, the red light steady. He pressed the intercom. Nothing. He pressed again, and the door opened 5 inches, then stopped. as if a hand still gripped the handle. He pushed it open. The air inside felt refrigerated, sterile. Rows of Federal Hold safety boxes lined the walls. Behind the third row, a panel hung loosely on a single screw. He saw the drag marks. They stopped at a section of the floor that looked a shade cleaner than the rest. He crouched, his hand brushing the grout. It crumbled like snow. He smelled solvent. You do not lift something that heavy in a blackout without a plan, he thought. He looked up. The ceiling vent had a new filter, a non-standard barcode. He peeled it back. A clean, neat sheet of dust fell. Blue industrial fibers from coveralls clung to the edges. Someone had crawled the vents. Someone had used the blackout window to enter, pull a panel, open a concealed floor hatch, and remove a case that had sat hidden under the tile for years. When Cole called evidence, the dispatcher was useless. Roads blocked. Wait for the feds. When he looked back, the two private guards were talking quietly on their phones. Neither had called him by his name. It was the first sign that he had already been made irrelevant. He wrote one sentence in his notebook. The robbery is true. The story is not. Cole's authority granted by default lasted 1 hour. At 2:30, a 3-letter agency took the case. The lead agent wore a suit that was too expensive, too perfectly tailored for the middle of the night. He shook Cole's hand with a smile that was less a greeting and more a closing door. "Appreciate you holding the scene, Detective," he said. "I didn't hold it," Cole countered, his voice flat. "I walked through it." The man's smile widened. "Then you saw nothing that concerned city police."
Cole watched the crew set up. They taped a small square over every camera lens facing Vault 9. They passed a handheld wand over the floor, not searching for prints, but for trace radiation. The wand was silent. The agent seemed satisfied. "What was stored here?" Cole asked. "Evidence," the man replied. "Of what?" "Ongoing matters." "Why did a blackout help a thief steal it?" The professional smile finally faltered. "Detective, do you see a theft report in your system?" "No." "Then you do not see a theft." Cole understood the new rule. Nothing had happened. The cameras had merely glitched. The vault had been secure. The floor was never lifted. The case was a phantom. If the city asked, the Annex would praise the local police for their quick, unnecessary response. He went home at dawn, walking up 12 flights of stairs because the elevator was a dead metal shaft. He boiled water on a camping stove he kept for emergencies, holding the cup until the tremor in his hands subsided. He didn't sleep. The fear in his throat had learned to sit still, like a silent, waiting predator. The city slowly returned to life by noon, piece by piece. Reports flooded the precinct. Small fires, break-ins, traffic collisions. One hospital lost a patient when a backup system failed. That death made the news. The blackout itself did not. A state spokesperson dismissed it as a routine weather event. He drove to Grid Control East. The supervisor, Raina Valka, looked exhausted, like a wartime operator. He asked for the raw logs at the outage. "You don't have jurisdiction," she said, her hands trembling slightly on the edge of her desk. "I have questions," Cole insisted. "The city lost power in a clean drop. That's not a storm, Raina. That's a switch." She looked at him for a long moment, making a choice. "Off the record, Darius, we received a test packet." "What kind?" "A load shed rehearsal, national script. We get them quarterly, but the timing was wrong. It arrived 15 minutes before the drop. It should have been a day ahead. It carried a valid signature. I'd never seen that before." "Who signed it?" "I'll lose my job if I say it out loud." "I'll write it, you nod." He scribbled a short 3-letter agency acronym on a pad. She didn't nod. She didn't have to. "Can you print the packet?" "No, it's self-expired." She didn't answer whether she'd copied it. Instead, she slid a small sticky note across the desk, a file path on an internal share. Cole looked at the characters, memorizing the silent act of defiance, and left the note on her desk. On his way out, he saw 2 men in bland suits by the elevator. They didn't look at him. They looked at the empty hallway behind him. He took the stairwell. Back at his precinct, his login failed, password reset. At records, the door scanner blinked red. He was an outsider now, watching his world turn against him. He called his partner, Mia Brahm, 8 years, clear head, unshakable trust. He asked her to pull traffic cameras near the Annex. She sounded tired. All roadside cameras froze during the drop, Darius. Backup power didn't route. Cole called a friend in traffic who owed him a favor. A minute later, a still image arrived from a bus camera that ran on its own battery. A dark van, no lights, with a dent under the rear handle. The driver wore red gloves. No plate, no face. The timestamp was 0117, 3 blocks from the Annex. He met Mia in a diner where the generator groaned like an old, sick dog. He slid the bus photo between the ketchup bottle and the sugar dispenser. She stared at it. "You're supposed to be off this," she whispered. "I know." "What do you think was in the Annex?" "Something someone needed to clean from history." She leaned in. Rumor says the Annex held a set of sealed drives from a closed committee, old surveillance, unpublished reports, a complete unvarnished record of a failed program from a decade ago that modeled mass protest and unrest. Someone kept it dark. Someone changed their mind. Where would they take it? Somewhere that doesn't exist on a public map. The diner doorbell jingled. 2 men walked in, ordering coffee they wouldn't drink. Their jackets bulged in the places jackets bulge when you're being reminded of a weapon. Mia shifted, subtly blocking the view of the photo. "There's more," Cole murmured, leaning closer. Grid Control got a national-level test packet 15 minutes early. Mia didn't speak. She watched a single grain of sugar fall from the dispenser, as if choosing its own path. She spoke without moving her lips. "You have to choose right now, Darius. Are you a detective or are you a witness? They are not the same thing." He folded the photo, paid the bill, and walked out. He felt the gaze of the men at the counter like a laser on his back. This wasn't about thieves. It was about authors, the ones who write events before they happen. At home, Cole used the laptop that had never touched the department network. He ran the file path Raina gave him, a dead link. He tried again, building the path by hand with old archive code. The page opened. Not the packet, but a meta report, exercise protocol variants. The signature block was smudged. The variance note read, "Deliver T-15. Reason, external synchronization." External with what?
He printed the single page, burned it with a match over the sink, and flushed the ash. Mia called. "I asked around," she said. "The ugly version says the Annex houses cold archives now, but it used to be a money staging area. During the last recession, people found a loophole. Move cash during declared emergencies. No oversight. The people who cut the power want those rules to echo. They want those models. Why risk this for old drives? Because the drivers say we're power that's planned. Who plans it? What it costs the public when the lights die. The risk is eaten by the patient in the hospital. The profit is reaped by the planners. Who are the planners? A non-public office in a public building, funded through a committee that never meets on camera. They forecast unrest. They also test the grid. Cole walked to the window. The city lights were back, normal and bright. He felt like he was staring at a photo of a place he no longer knew. Then his door opened. The 2 men in suits walked in. The lead one held a letter with the Annex seal. He apologized for the hour, but his voice held no remorse. He placed the letter on the table. "Detective Cole," he said. "This is a national security non-disclosure. You will sign it. You will not pursue derivative lines of inquiry. You will understand your duty." Cole looked at the seal, then at the man. He did not move to sign. "You don't have a choice," the man said. "I have one," Cole said, the stone in his throat dissolving into defiance. "I can quit." The man smiled cold and brief. "No, you cannot." They left the letter and, pointedly, left the door wide open. They didn't need his signature. They had already taken what they wanted, his compliance. An anonymous email hit Mia's burner phone, a link to a public records portal and a narrow search string. She found a municipal permit for an unmarked fiber trench outside the federal annex, issued 2 days before the blackout, approved in under 4 minutes. The contractor was a shell company. The number reached a silent voicemail. The trench crew had run a line into Vault 9, not to open it, but to clone it. Cole found a neighborhood blog proto of the trench crew. Cones, a figure in blue coveralls and red gloves. His fear was finally swallowed by a heat of pure, necessary anger. He texted Raina, "Show up."
She took him to a back office at grid control, turning a small fan up until it rattled to create white noise. "I copied one header, Darius," she whispered. "The signature chain includes a local relay. It bounced through a state emergency operations node." "Which one?" "The one in the basement of our central library." "How do I get in?" "You don't, anymore. They've closed the access points." She looked at him, her eyes pleading. "The packet left marks, Darius. Marks in the clocks. If you trace the internal time drift across systems, the Annex, the traffic lights, the bus GPS, you'll find the moment someone wanted to hide. Follow drift. Clocks gossip, cameras lie." Cole enlisted Mia. They found the pattern, an Annex security panel that lost 2 minutes, a city bus GPS that gained 9 seconds, a hospital generator that recorded a half-length gap. The drift pointed squarely to the library basement. They went at midnight. The guards were absent. A side emergency exit hung open, propped with a foreign soda can, chosen not for its brand but its perfect shape. In the basement, behind a newly installed steel door, the air hummed. Racks of equipment blinked like a low-lying technological sky. A wall map showed state grid segments, dotted with sticky notes, time drift and junction code. In the center of the room, on a wheeled platform sat the case, rectangular, stenciled with the number. Red gloves rested on top of it like a flag. Cole stepped closer. He reached out and touched the case. It was live cold, a chilling sensation that didn't match the room's temperature. "Detective Cole, you should not be here." The voice was calm, dry, coming from a hidden intercom. Cole turned as the steel door slid shut. The man in the two perfect suits stood between them and the hall. He didn't need a visible gun. "You are stealing public records," Cole said. "We are protecting stability," he corrected, "by erasing it, by storing it where it cannot be weaponized against a nervous populace." "What is the case?" "The answer to a question you will not be allowed to ask." Mia took a small step forward. "We have a warrant." "No, you don't," the man said. "You have a belief. It's charming. It will be corrected." He did not raise his voice. He pressed a remote. The rack lights died. The hum dropped to silence. The room went black, empty and cold. When the lights returned, seconds later, the case was gone. Hopelessness, Cole realized, feels like watching the evidence of your own existence disappear. The next morning, the news was full of a protest that had turned violent in a neighboring city. The Blackout was page 2. The Annex was a phantom. Cole found a box on his desk. Administrative leave, no signature. Mia's desk was clean. He met Raina at a food truck lot at sunset. She looked thinner, defeated. She said, "They want a story with a familiar villain, a software bug, a headline everyone can shrug at. They write it, I signed it." She put a folded sheet in his hand, a list of dates, times, and a reference column labeled handoff. The last line read, 0312 library node to contractor transit, the van. Where did it go? Harbor tunnel, then the old customs pier. After that, the trail dies.
At midnight, Cole and Mia were at the pier. Cole moved along the wall, smelling wet rope and salt. Through a window, he saw the case on the floor, surrounded by a team of suits. One used a small tool on the hinges. Cole lifted his phone and took 6 quick photos. He felt no safety, only the stark, cold necessity of his purpose. A hand touched his shoulder. Mia. "I'm here with them on paper, Darius. Not in my mind. Don't react. Don't run. If you're going to be reckless, do it now." "What is the case, really?" "An index," she whispered. "Not the drives. A map of where the drives are hidden. Names, rooms, routes, signatures. With the map gone, the drives are ghosts." As the lead suit nodded to the van driver, Cole slid along the wall. Mia raised her voice to distract them. Cole slapped a small, black tracking tag under the bumper. It clicked once. The van rolled. The lead suit looked back, his eyes meeting Cole's through the open doorway. The man didn't shout. He offered a small, professional smile. "We have 6 hours, Mia said as they drove away from the silent pier. The tag pinged a location, a defense contractor hangar with a private runway. At the hangar, Cole lifted his camera. He shot the case number, the lead suit's face, the red gloves, and the woman's tablet showing the index icon. He sent the set to 3 recipients: a journalist he trusted, a lawyer who sued the city for sport, and a priest who kept confessions that did not need God. Then, the lead suit looked up, his head cocked, as if smelling rain. 2 quiet men walked toward the service road. "Run," Mia said. They ran. A bullet hit the ground behind them, throwing up dust. Not a warning, but a range check. "Why are you doing this?" Mia gasped as they ducked behind a concrete barrier. "Because I remember what a badge was for," he answered. "Then hear me. You cannot save the map. You can only seed the doubt. Doubt is the slow fuse. That is all we have." They slipped through a service gate and vanished into the city's indifferent noise. By noon the next day, the journalist's site went offline. The lawyer's office announced a sudden fire. The priest took a leave of absence. Every door had closed. Cole retired on paper. Mia moved units. The story had been written. Software bug, routine weather event, crisis averted. But Cole had the ledger. He knew which clocks had lied. He knew which permits were fake. 3 months later, the city's lights died again, smaller and cleaner. The traffic fell but recovered. The headlines blamed the vendor. But 6 minutes after the drop, in a small archive under a forgotten courthouse annex, a camera tape lost 10 frames. In those 10 frames, a case moved from a shelf to a cart. The case was rectangular. The hinge had a tiny scar. Cole stood 2 blocks away in the rain. He did not attach the new tag. He raised his camera and took 1 picture. He put the camera in a waterproof mailer and slid it into a storm drain where a prearranged hand would find it. He went home and waited for the knock that never came. He poured water from the kettle and watched the steam rise in a straight, honest line. He had not won. He had learned how to lose in a way that leaves marks. The storm wasn't stolen, it was borrowed. And it would be borrowed again. Cole never wrote memoirs. He sent a pocket watch to Raina for her birthday with the face set 3 seconds off, the measure of the city's forgotten lie. She laughed and cried and never fixed it. The city lived. The lights mostly stayed on. When they blinked, people lit candles and told gentle lies to each other. The robbery was the rehearsal, the blackout was the stage, the cover-up was the show in daylight, and Darius Cole became the witness, holding his role like a blade hidden in his sleeve. Take a deep breath. If you've stayed with me through the end of this story, you need to understand one vital thing. This was never just a piece of history for us to analyze. It was a siren blaring. It was a raw, undeniable warning. They didn't just steal the abstract storm from the sky. They stole our right to see the warning signs. They stole our ability to prepare, our chance to stand together. That power, that foresight was taken directly from the people. And when the lights finally failed, it wasn't just a financial loss that defined the darkness. It was the truth. The simple, solid facts of the matter were scrubbed away, leaving us standing in an empty room, unsure of what we'd just witnessed. If you are someone who feels the threads of the lie pulling tight, if you want to dig up the stories they desperately try to bury beneath the breaking news, then I need you to stay with us. Do not lose this connection. Hit subscribe right now. Turn on every single notification, because the next blackout, The next time they plan to dim the world is already being schemed. And when that moment comes, you will need to be among the few. You will want to be the person who finally sees the shadows moving instead of just feeling the cold of the dark.